Welcome friends to another r/NuclearRevenge video. Today we've got a crazy story of getting revenge against what was a best friend, then turned bully. But first, make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below so you never miss any of my daily videos. Our first story of the day is I got revenge against my now ex-best friend. All of this happened in high school when my ex-best friend and I were between the ages of 14 and 17. My most vivid memory from childhood was when my parents used to invite their friends over on the last Sunday of every month for dinner. I remember sneaking out of my bedroom to watch from the top of the stairs when they would eat and laugh together, and thinking about how I would do it with my own friends someday. Unfortunately, my parents got a divorce when I turned 7, and it led to a lot of issues for me, social anxiety being at the very top of the list. Now, if you don't know what social anxiety can do to a person, I'll give you a scenario. Imagine shaking like a leaf when asked a question, even if it's something as simple as your name. I was the shyest person wherever I went, and when people figured that out, they didn't even bother looking my way or speaking to me. As if it wasn't bad enough that I actually walked the school hallways on my own like a pathetic little person, they also started to bully me. It began in middle school when my classmates would make tiny little jabs at me in the hallways and call me weird names. It continued until sophomore year, then they graduated to making fun of me in the cafeteria and pushing me around. I learned my lesson and began to bring my own lunch to school and eat by myself under the bleachers. And it was incredibly peaceful for a few weeks until they found me again. When they saw me, they went out of their way to always corner me and be nasty, laughing when I would shake, quiver, and stutter in fear. One day, one of them got sick of asking me questions and getting no response, so he hit me across the face. I still remember like it happened yesterday when one of the most popular girls in school walked up to my bully and pushed him away, yelling a lot of curse words and causing a scene. Although I was very uncomfortable with the gathering crowd, it was the first time anyone had ever done anything like that for me, and my heart warmed immediately. It was one thing to just tell off someone, but watching her get so enraged at my bully made me think that maybe I would find a friend in her. My ex-bestie and I became good friends very fast, and it was like we complemented each other in the most stereotypical way possible. I was quiet, shy, and good at school, and she was outgoing, fun, and came late to nearly everything. Sooner than I expected, we became super cozy around each other, having sleepovers and dinner at each other's homes. Our mothers even started mingling more with each other. I loved having a best friend so much because it meant that I could do all the things I'd fantasized about from childhood. The sleepovers, sharing secrets, and giggling about boys. And I was determined to make sure that I was the best friend that anyone could ever ask for. Unfortunately, my obsession with the friendship that she and I shared made me completely blind to the fact that she never returned a lot of my sentiments. For example, she would barely speak to me during school hours, but then during lunch, she would pull me to a table with her popular friends and make me talk about things that I normally would only tell her. It was very discomforting for me, but I did whatever I could to make sure that she didn't get upset with me. I kept on telling myself that whatever things she put me through were the same things that every other pair of best friends went through. After all, I'd never had friends before, so how was I supposed to know? My ex-best friend and I were best friends from sophomore year until junior year, which was when things started to get really bad. I was used to having her as my utmost priority and being the last thing she thought of. And I'd worked out a good dynamic to make sure that I was exactly the person she needed me to be. Her servant, while also showing up to my classes early and participating in the few clubs I'd been courageous enough to join. It was a little stressful to combine, but I tried hard enough to keep my head above water and be there for her enough so we didn't fight. As we moved closer to senior year, I started to take school a little more seriously because I needed to get a scholarship, and I didn't want anything ruining that one plan for me. My ex-best friend did not like that at all, because it meant that I wouldn't be able to be her little tag-along anymore. She tried to guilt-trip me into showing up to parties with her and entertaining her friends during lunch, and I refused every time she asked because I always had something to do. It caused a huge rift between us, and no matter how much I tried to apologize and make out time for us to hang out alone and do something that didn't include any of her other friends, we moved further apart. It hurt me a lot because she was supposed to be my best friend and support me in things I did. And even though I was used to being put last in the relationship, things had started to get to me. Our relationship remained strained, and it even got worse when I started to casually go out with the one boy that finally noticed me. He was cute, charming, and also a member of the chess club like me, so we had things in common and got along pretty well. My relationship with my new boyfriend felt a lot less draining than being around my best friend, and I started to learn what being respected really felt like. Still, I was desperate to save my friendship with a popular girl, so I decided to host a sleepover with her where we would talk about what had been going on in our lives, and then I would break the news about my relationship to her. It was the perfect plan, and so I got to work making all of her favorite snacks and picking out movies I knew she'd like. The day of the sleepover reached, and my best friend was nowhere to be found. She refused to answer any of my calls or texts, and I got really worried. I stayed up till it was really late, waiting for at least a message from her to say that she was safe, but I didn't get anything. It was nearly midnight when I realized that she probably wasn't coming, and decided to clean up and get ready for bed. To stop myself from crying, I went on Instagram where I saw countless videos and pictures taken from her parents' house where she apparently threw a party. I didn't realize when I started crying until I couldn't see the pictures on my phone clearly anymore. I sobbed until there were no tears to cry anymore, and I eventually fell asleep. My boyfriend was very sweet and understanding about things, but I noticed that he kept defending her. It pissed me off, but I wasn't ready to fight with the only other friend that I had. So I took his suggestion and went to speak to her. When she spotted me, she feigned sadness, immediately going into a long winding story about how she had forgotten about the party and people had showed up to her house before she could make it out. She mentioned trying to leave, but realizing that she had to keep the house safe so that no one broke anything. The story seemed a little weird, because I knew that she didn't joke with her parties, but before I could point anything out, she had already started to shed tears. I believed her because it seemed like she really missed me, and we hugged and made up. She was really sweet to me for the rest of the week, and even set up another sleepover by herself. I was really excited for the sleepover, and we did all the stereotypical best friend sleepover things. By the time I'd eaten dinner and dessert, I was tired enough to fall asleep. That was my first mistake, leaving her wide awake and unsupervised in my room. The school year's end reached and we had to write exams. I tried to study with my boyfriend and best friend, but they made things a little slower for me, so I mainly studied on my own. The Friday before the week exams were supposed to begin, my ex-best friend called me into an empty classroom and locked the door behind us. She told me the exam papers had been delivered to a teacher and that she needed help getting just one of them. I immediately refused to help, letting her know that we could face serious penalties if we were even heard talking about it. She called me a prude and a few other very colorful names, but I still wasn't letting up. She then tried to coerce me softly, telling me how all the cool kids in school would want to be my friends and how they would forever be indebted to me. That almost got to me because she was using my own fear against me, but I stood my ground, firmly telling her no. She got upset and told me that I had just passed up the opportunity to make some more cool friends for myself and that I would regret it. We didn't speak to each other for a while after that. On the final day of exams, I got called into the principal's office and accused of leaking exam questions to my classmates, the very thing I'd been against doing in the first place. I tried to argue my case, but there was very little I could say when there was a suspicious amount of eyewitnesses confessing to having seen me. I had a good idea who pulled the elaborate stunt, but I forced myself not to think about it. As a punishment, I was banned from all the school events that were going to take place, and I had to do community service during the first month of summer school. Both my parents hosted an intervention for me, and after failing to get me to admit that I leaked the exam questions, they concluded that I was getting out of control and decided that they would ground me for the entire month as well. So I wasn't doing very well. I spent the entire month by myself with minimal contact with the outside world. But not once did my boyfriend or my best friend even call me or try to visit. The month passed soon enough, and I decided that I would confront my best friend about knowing that she lied against me. Coincidentally, she invited me to one of her summer parties, and I thought it would be the best opportunity. From the second I entered into her parents' large mansion, I had a really bad feeling in my gut, so I would try to be quick. I thought I was paranoid until I walked into my best friend and my boyfriend kissing on the stairs. It broke my heart, and I made to run away, but they spotted me. I wanted to go straight home and cry my eyes out, but they had other plans. They, alongside their other friends, cornered me right in the middle of the party. They that was supposed to be my best friend, and the boy that had told me he loved me about a month and a half ago, started to laugh and point fingers at me. Someone turned on a projector against the wall, and a montage started to play. Images of me doing a lot of different and embarrassing things, like putting on my retainers at night, just coming out of the bathroom half clothed, and a lot of other things I would rather not mention, played on a wall, and I watched in pure horror. These were things that only my best friend and boyfriend could have gotten access to. There were pages from my diary as well, edited to say very incriminating things about people that I barely even know. I left the party shaking in anger and hurt, unable to understand my bad luck in choosing friends, but swearing to get these people back. I got a job and spent the rest of my summer either working or cooped up inside my house making my own plans. They forgot that being a quiet person meant that I saw and heard everything that went on around me, and my whole plan was to use that against them. After all, the best way to fight fire is with fire. When school was back in session, I went back as if nothing happened, becoming my quiet loner self again. But this time, I was a loner with a mission. It was our senior year, and I wanted to begin with a bang. I started by submitting a footage of my ex-best friend changing her grades in the school computer that I intercepted from the tech club in school, and then alerting teachers every time that I spotted her and my ex-boyfriend together in the janitor's closet or an empty classroom. I also ratted their friends out one after the other, making sure that everything they had ever done in the dark came to light. By the end of the school year, my ex-best friend had been caught cheating during tests and exams so many times that she would either have to go back to junior year again or leave the school. Her parents had money, so of course they fixed it by changing schools, but most of her information was already out on the internet on an anonymous blog, so she would be very popular at whatever school she ended up going to. It's been a few years since I left high school, and I still don't feel bad about what I did to her. Instead, I look back and laugh about it because she deserved every single thing, and then some. I don't know much about how she's doing now, but I know that if she ever meets me again, she'll regret knowing me. This story kind of makes me think about how I felt sometimes growing up with friends. I had friends who were way more popular than I ever was, and sometimes I found myself thinking to myself, are they just friends with me out of pity? Do they just find it funny to hang around me, talk to me? Have you guys ever had like an internal monologue worrying about whether your friends or maybe your partner in a relationship actually have genuine feelings for you? Let me know about you guys in the comments down below. And our final story of the day is Trouble in Paradise. I'm the second child in a family of 3, and my 2 other siblings are boys. We each have 2 years separating us, which means that we're very close in age. My little brother is the sweetest person ever. Super kind and thoughtful, and we're basically glued at the hip. So close that everyone thinks we're twins. My older brother is a jerk and has been since we were little children. He always liked to bully us and get us in trouble every chance that he had, unrelenting with terrorism no matter how much we begged. My theory was that he was very jealous of the relationship I and our little brother had, but he had too much pride to actually tell us that he wanted to be a part of all the things we did together. Instead, he decided he would be a nuisance and ruin whatever fun we had managed to create for ourselves. He didn't realize that he had slowly started to make us hate him, and by the time we were all adults, we didn't care for him much. It was especially annoying as our parents were very busy people who could not afford a babysitter, and they often left him in charge of us on a lot of weeknights. He took complete advantage of the little power he had, using whatever chances he had to separate and bully me and our little brother. I tried to stand in and fight when I could, but coming from a typical Korean immigrant family meant that I had to show respect to everyone older than me, no matter how irritating they were. We did try to report him to our parents, but when there was so much work to be done and money to be made, they told us that they didn't need the extra trouble. Plus, he was their golden child and it was his word over ours. knowing that he wouldn't be listened to was a good way to get us to work on dealing with the situation ourselves, and completely staying out of his way. When we got old enough, we took on afternoon jobs at the mall and spent nearly all of our time there. With no siblings in his way to pick on, my brother took his mean streak with him to school and became a tyrant, teasing the kids and even some teachers. He's really smart and got most of the good-looking genes, so it was a no-brainer that he was the favorite of a lot of people. My little brother and I grew up in his shadow, but we had each other, so it didn't matter much to us. Another thing about my big brother that he was well known for was breaking hearts. He knew that he was really good looking, so girls flocked to him like little birds, and he made sure to go through entire flocks. He once dated a whole group of friends and made them promise to be nice to each other. It was wild, but I never expected less of him. He was capable of getting away with everything, no matter how insane. Fortunately for him, he didn't peak in high school and then fall off completely like a lot of his friends who messed around with him in high school. He played football in high school, so he got a sports scholarship and went on to study chemical engineering at an Ivy League university, and it didn't take long for his reputation to precede him. He became the star quarterback and got what seemed like the entire cheerleading squad in college, and he was praised for it. Everyone knew who he was, and he was having the time of his life, being known and respected as that. After college, my older brother went off to the corporate world of New York to make a name for himself, while my little brother and I stayed back to finish community college and work a little closer to home. After 2 years in New York, our father passed away, and our older brother had to come back home for the funeral. He showed up, and my mother went from a mourning woman to a doting mom, cooking everything he asked for at the drop of a hat and treating him the same way she and my father used to when he was still living at home. I guess he enjoyed the attention a little too much because, after our father's funeral, he decided to take on remote work and move back home. I and our second brother thought it wouldn't be so bad because there was a chance he'd matured into a sensible person. But we were so wrong. He seems to have regressed, playing pranks like he never left high school, graduating to even hitting us as a joke. He never took responsibility for anything, messed the entire house up, and always talked loudly to his friends about what girls he's currently sleeping with. As usual, both the younger siblings were made to go through it until they could properly adjust. We hoped that something would change soon, but we weren't prepared for how much we would enjoy it. As kids, our parents were friends with another family, and they had dinner at each other's homes whenever any of the adults could spare the time. The couple had just one daughter, we'll call her Goth Girl, and she and I became pretty good friends, considering she was an only child and I was the only girl in my family. We didn't have much in common, but we managed to put that aside and have fun together anyway. The name Goth Girl is pretty self-explanatory because she was always wearing dark-colored clothes, listened to mostly metal alternative music, and had an array of ear piercings. From the day our parents introduced us to each other till adulthood, I'd seen her wear light colors barely even a handful of times. She had a very intense and intimidating aura that only went away when she was with me because we were basically best friends, and she could be completely herself with me. For some reason, she was the only girl that my older brother hadn't dared approach. He barely even spoke to her, and if he had to, he stuttered so badly that he would just give up. It was pretty obvious to everyone that he liked her, but my brother would rather run and hide than speak to her. It was hilarious to watch, knowing the kind of person he was, and seeing that their personalities were so different. I was convinced that nothing could ever happen between that. But I was so surprised to come home from work one day to find Goth Girl and my older brother half naked and tangled up on the couch. It was hilarious, and I made sure to tease them about it every chance I got. It was a confusing dynamic. My sweet, artsy, dark friend who hid her nice nature from the world with a resting witch face and dark lipstick, dating my misogynistic jerk of a brother. But it was a very interesting one nevertheless. I tried to talk her out of it, but she assured me that she knew what she was doing. I knew there would be a change in my big brother, but I just didn't think it would be so soon or so dramatic. He went from an annoying, brash jerk to a moderately well-behaved person whenever Goth Girl was around. He seemed to be completely smitten and did everything that she asked of him, which included purposely being nice to his family and doing things for our mother instead of having her do things for him. Even our mother noticed the change in her favorite son, and she appreciated it. Goth Girl was a person with a very strong personality, and so was my brother. At first, it was really cute watching them bicker over small things, and then he would give in to whatever request she had. But with time, the fight started to become more serious. Big Brother must have gotten sick of trying to do right by his girlfriend all the time, so he attempted to begin treating her the same way he treated all the girls he dated before, which was his first mistake. I attempted to warn him because I knew that it would not end well, but he asked me to mind my own business and stay out of things that concerned him, so I did. My older brother started to cheat on his girlfriend with one of his many exes from high school, and almost immediately Goth Girl found out. She came over to the house and they had a big fight about it, but she didn't break up with him as expected. Instead, they fixed the situation and were good again for a while, until my brother would be his usual self and relapse into cheating. The relationship became really toxic after barely a year of them being together, and everyone wondered why she didn't just up and leave him. I asked her, and she informed me that she intended to teach my brother a lesson that he would never forget. She expected me to be protective of him and ask her questions, but I just nodded. My brother was the biggest jerk I knew. Whatever she would do to him, I knew that he deserved it. My little brother's college graduation soon came up, and I decided to gift him with a trip for 2 to LA for a week. He chose me as his +1, and I was really excited. Somehow, Goth Girl got some information about my plans, and she also booked a getaway for her and my older brother to the same place. I mean, down to the hotel even. It pissed me off because I wanted my little brother to have a good time, and with our older brother there, it seemed actually impossible. When I brought it up, she promised me that we would barely even hear a peep from them. True to her word, my little brother and I actually had a good week, and when it was time to catch the flight back home, Goth Girl emerged with a huge rock on her ring finger and a glowing grin. My brother had proposed. It was a huge shock factor for my little brother and me, and then everyone else, seeing this couple that we had seen fight all the time, now engaged and excited to be married. They even started acting like a new couple again, being all romantic to each other. 2 months later, Goth Girl dropped a bomb on us. She was pregnant. The wedding immediately started being planned, and it felt like things were moving too fast. I wanted to ask a couple of questions, but I'd been told once already by my brother to mind my business when it came to his life. So I did just that. They planned a whole wedding and executed it successfully in less than a month, and my brother seemed very happy with the arrangement. He allowed Goth Girl to do whatever she wanted, becoming the stereotypical husband figure and seemingly maturing in the span of only a couple of months. After the wedding had taken place in the spring, they moved to New York together and stayed there for a couple of months, and had zero contact with us back home. That was until late on a chilly autumn evening in November when my brother called, drunkenly yelling that Goth Girl had kicked him out of their shared apartment. There seemed to be trouble in paradise, but I was unable to reach anyone properly until the next couple of days. My brother seemed miserable, talking about how Goth Girl had started to treat him badly. From his explanation though, we figured out that he was just upset that the honeymoon phase was over, and his wife was only being mean to him because he was being irresponsible and had started cheating again. When he realized that I wouldn't be on his side, he tried to get our mother involved, and she was quick to respond to him, hopping on the first flight she could find to New York. She returned home with her tail tucked between her legs 2 days later, and although she never said what actually happened, I felt very proud that someone finally stood up to her. My older brother's marriage fell apart pretty soon after we found out that Goth Girl was never pregnant. By then, she'd gotten complete access and control of all of his accounts, so she emptied his bank accounts whenever she pleased. He tried really hard to get her to hand over his possessions, and when she didn't, he filed for divorce. It seems a little mean and maybe even heartless of us, but the entire time we were present in the court, my little brother and I rooted for Goth Girl. We knew that she was exaggerating a lot of the things she said, but she had a lot of evidence that incriminated our brother, and he had no way of getting himself out of it. She ended up winning the case, taking a huge amount of money, as well as a spousal allowance for the next 5 years. Goth Girl and I got even closer after the divorce, and I felt very satisfied with the treatment she gave my brother. He was a terror to us growing up, and I knew that I'd never have it in me to take revenge. So, she did two people a very big favor. Goth Girl went the good old gold digger route. They did the long con. How much do you want to bet that the moment they got involved, this was always going to be their exit plan? They saw some big shot that had a nice job working remotely, making some decent cash, and they said, I want to walk away with half of that, and some. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another revenge story that was crazier than any of the ones in this video, click on that left video. Or, if you missed my latest video, click on the right. That said though, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.